Welcome to our tutorial on solid and fluid mechanics. The International Association of Certified Practicing Engineers is a partnership of academics, practical engineers, and those striving to increase their knowledge and boost their career. The goal is to build an organization with validated candidates' engineering fundamentals, improve their individual skills, and enhance their networking ability. We began writing the Kolmetz Handbook of Process Equipment Design in 2007. We're honored it's been well received all over the world. We'd get emails from students asking for student discount. The handbook is mostly purchased by companies, so the cost is high for students. In June 2017, we developed an idea to start an engineering association and to utilize the handbook to train and certify individuals at a student rate. We're now in our 5th year of the association. ICPE has 3 levels: CPE Level 1, CPE Level 2, and CPE Level 3. Level 1 is to set the engineering foundation, to make sure you have a solid engineering foundation. The CPE Level 1 candidate would study and understand the 6 engineering fundamental training modules, review a sample test of 100 questions on each of the 6 training modules, and that's what we're going to go today. We're going to go over the first 33 of the 100 questions. Pass a test of 25 questions from each of the 6 fundamental modules. The fundamental modules are fundamentals of solid fluid mechanics, fundamentals of thermodynamics and heat transfer, engineering materials and their strength, physics and electromagnetism, fundamentals of inherently safer design, professional engineering ethics, Part 1. The value of these modules, if purchased separately, would be greater than USD $1,000. Level 2. After Level 1, you'd go to Level 2. Level 2 now begins to teach you how to apply the fundamentals that you learned in Level 1. So, in Level 2, there are 3 required, and then there's 4 that you get to choose from the 50-plus chapters of the Kolmetz Handbook of Process Equipment Design. So the 3 required modules are piping fluid flow, project management. We believe every engineer should have project management, statistical process control, which is Six Sigma, lean engineering, and additional 4 modules that you choose. If you go to KLM Technology Group website, each of the modules is for sale for $500. These 7 modules are valued at about $3,500 if bought separately at the KLM Technology Group website. The real value of the CPE certification is Level 2 and Level 3. And that was really why we started the association, so you could buy them at a student rate. Level 3. The 3 required are production control engineering, that's in industrial engineering, how to lay out a plant, how to facilitate control. Professional engineering ethics, Part 2, professional reports and presentations. Plus 4 additional modules from the Kolmetz Handbook of Process Equipment Design. These, again, 7 modules are valued at about $3,500. The real value of the CPE certification is Level 2 and Level 3. The total value of the modules that you're going to get is about $8,000. And we have, this is the cost that's published on the website. Okay, for Indonesia, it's 1.5 million Indonesian rupiah, 3 million, 4.5 million. In US, it's $300, $400, and $500. So this is, for the value, this is relatively low cost. Now, I'm real happy if you want to go to KLM website and pay $500 per module. But I might advise a student to go do this. Solid and fluid mechanics, 100 study questions. Today we're going to cover Part 1, questions 1 through 33. Question 1. Action of one body on another which will cause the acceleration of the second body unless acted on by equal and opposite action, counteracting the effect of the first body, is called force. A pair of two equal and opposite forces acting on a body in such a way that the lines of action of the two forces are not in the straight line is called a couple. Question 3. The point through which the whole weight of the body may be assumed to act as the definition of center of gravity. Property in a rotational system which may be considered equivalent to the mass in a translational system is called moments of inertia. The rate of change of its position with respect to its surroundings in a particular direction is the meaning of velocity. One in which the particles are rigidly connected that does not deform or change shape is the definition of a rigid body. The resistance that is encountered when two solid surfaces slide or tend to slide over each other is called friction. Question 8. What is the phenomenon that appears when the frequency of the perturbation or forced angular frequency is equal to the natural angular frequency? Resonance. What is the meaning of frequency? The time one is needed to complete one oscillation, the number of complete oscillations that take place in 1 second. The spring has no mass and there is no damping in the system. The motion is exactly repeated after a certain period of time. The number of complete oscillations that take place in 1 second. Question 10. Following motion is a type of rigid body motion except rotation about a fixed axis, translation, planar motion, vibrational motion, and vibrational motion. Total momentum before a collision equals total momentum after a collision is a statement of law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of momentum, law of conservation of time, law of conservation of momentum. When is a rigid body stated to be in equilibrium? When the equivalent force coupled systems of the external forces acting on it is 0. Equivalent force coupled systems of the external forces acting on it is less than 0. Equivalent force coupled systems of the external forcing is more than 0. Or the equivalent force coupled systems of the external forces acting on it is 1. Equivalent force coupled systems of the external forces acting on it is 0. Inertia force is the direction opposite to the acceleration and in addition to the real forces on the plane is the principle of Newton, momentum, thermodynamics, and this is a French word, d'Alembert, and it's d'Alembert. When the product of the area for any axis and any axis at right angles to the axis is stated 0. The area under the consideration has an axis of symmetry. The area under the consideration had points of symmetry. The area under consideration has an axis of asymmetry. The area under consideration had points of asymmetry. The area under consideration has axis of symmetry. What's the difference between the center of gravity and the center of centroid? Center of gravity applies to plane areas, while centroid applies to bodies with mass and weight. Center of gravity is applied to any axis, while the centroid is applied to any orientation of the body. Center of gravity applies to the bodies with mass and weight, while centroid applies to the plane areas. Center of gravity is applied to any body, while the centroid is applied to orientation of the mass. Center of gravity applies to bodies with mass and weight, while the centroid applies to plane areas. How to obtain the angular momentum of a rigid body? Adding the angular momentum to the moment of the linear momentum of the center of gravity. Multiplying the angular momentum to the moment of the linear momentum of the center of gravity. The moment of linear momentum is divided by the angular momentum, deducting the angular momentum with the moment of the linear momentum of the center of gravity. Adding the angular momentum to the moment of the linear momentum of the center of gravity. Obviously, you need to go read the module and understand these. What is the function of the instantaneous center of the rotational method? Determine the angular velocity, determine the angular acceleration, determine the linear velocity, determining the linear acceleration, determining the angular velocity. Question 18. What is the coefficient of restitution values of a perfectly elastic material? E equals 0.5, E equals 0, E is between 0 and 1, and E equals 1. So a perfectly elastic material equals 1. What is the value of the friction force when the body is stated at rest? And I gave you some help here. N is the normal force. Mu S is the coefficient of static friction. FF is the frictional force. And mu is the 12th letter of the Greek alphabet. And the answer is frictional force is less than the normal force in the coefficient. The minimum moments of an inertia of a body occur about the axis that pass through the centroid is the theorem of second moments, moments of inertial, parallel axis, product, moment of inertia, parallel axis. The algebraic sum of translating the kinetic energy of the center of gravity and the rotating kinetic energy about the center of gravity is the meaning of kinetic energy of axis, kinetic energy of a rigid body, kinetic energy of particles, kinetic energy of a rigid body. Question 22. What is the friction type that occurs when the surfaces are free from contamination, fluids, or films? Greasy friction, dry friction, smooth friction, rough friction. Dry frictions. So here is a mathematical question. A uniform rod, 250 newtons, is hinged at the bottom end, B, to a fixed point A. 1 meter rod rests in a position inclined to 60 degrees to the horizontal by a string in a vertical position. What is the magnitude of the tension of the string? You go into the module. You have these formulas. You solve these formulas. And the tension of the string is 125 newtons. A wheel has a magnitude of the moments of inertia of 6 kg/meter squared. It is worked with a constant torsion of 51 newton meters. Determine the angular acceleration of the wheel. Again, you go into the module. You look at the formulas, and it's 8.5 rads per second squared. A 2 kilogram block passes over the top B with a speed of 3.5 meters per second. Calculate the normal force in B exerted by the path of the block. Acceleration of gravity is 9.8 meters per second. And you plug in the formulas. Thus the normal force at B is 9.41 Newton. A dimensionless ratio of the density of the fluid of that specific reference. A dimensional ratio of the density of a fluid to that of a specific fluid reference is specific gravity, dynamic viscosity, density, kinematic viscosity, specific gravity. A line which gives the direction of the velocity of a fluid particle at each point in the flow stream is called a streamline. A state in a constant volume that the fluid gives constant density is the meaning of isotropic, isochloric, isothermal, isobar, isochloric. One condition which there's no heat transfer and it is reversible between the system and the surroundings is the meaning of isentropic. Which one has a polytropic index value of 1? Isothermal. Question 31. The following is the cause of friction loss except Fittings and valves, sudden contraction, sudden enlargement, or velocity. And velocity is the answer. Question 32, the following is a number of dimensions required to describe a velocity profile except 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, or 4 dimensions. And 4 dimensions. You only need 3. The following are forms of energy which are usually considered in fluid flow except renewable energy. And I think we actually made that up. We believe IACPE is a great program. Level 1 gives you a solid engineer floor. Level 2 gives you, it takes your fundamentals from level 1, gives you practical guidance, and then there's a networking piece. And we believe there's really a lot of value in the CPE program. All the best in your career and life.